I'm just trying to human. Hey y'all, welcome back to Falling Off Curbs. I am your host, Kat, and as always, I am so thrilled to have y'all here with me as we, I don't know, figure out how to human together. We're gonna just jump in today. We're just gonna jump in. Today, I want to start soft, right? I'm not going to start with a lesson or a list, not that I normally do, but I want to start with a feeling today. I've been thinking about this a lot. Um, a feeling, that the feeling, that ache, the ache that kind of creeps in when you are holding on to something for too long, or when you are smiling, but your chest is tight, or you're being praised for being strong, but you are barely holding on. That moment, where you don't say anything even though it hurts, people clap for that. And they call it growth and they call it emotionally mature and they call it strength. But y'all, what if it isn't? What if being silent when it hurts isn't strength? What if it's just what we've had to do to survive? So I want to talk about that today. And before I jump in, let me just say this. There absolutely is a time where it's time to be silent, you know? And there is a time when said silence is actually strength. It is actually emotionally mature or emotional maturity. It is actually composure. I'm not talking about those times because those are absolutely necessary. And we know that as we grow up and get older, right? There is a time to be quiet. I'm not talking about that. I am talking specifically about the moments, and I'll talk for me, always use I statements. I'm talking about the moments where I've been hurting, like deeply hurting, and I didn't say anything. I didn't say one word, y'all. Not one word. And it wasn't because I didn't feel it. It wasn't because it didn't matter. But honestly, I think I'd convinced myself that silence was the higher road, right? It was the more evolved choice, dare I say. Like there was some, I don't know, reward for swallowing pain with grace. And folks, y'all have heard it. Folks will tell you, oh, you're so strong. And sure, yeah, right. Maybe I am strong. Great. Maybe I look strong. But y'all, inside, I feel, I felt erased, if that's the word I can use. And, many times in this here dating journey that you all have so generously and graciously joined me on, I find myself doing this silent thing. I'd be on the phone with someone or would be texting and he'd say something, right? Not particularly cruel or mean, but dismissive. And it hurt. And I felt it in that moment, but I didn't say anything. I'd laugh or change the subject or just really be quiet. And I realized I made it easy for him. And then we'd hang up and I I remember feeling almost proud, like, okay, Kat, you handled that well. You didn't start anything. You didn't make it a big deal. And folks who know me know it's very rare that I make something a big deal, just in general. I'm generally pretty chilled out. But get out the phone. You did good, girl. You didn't make it a thing. But then, you think about it, sometimes the seconds later, usually it's a couple hours that have passed. And that the conversation comes back up in my head. And suddenly the thing that I was so proud of, like that pride cracked deeply so into grief because I'd betrayed myself. I had given grace out loud to him or to them while giving myself grief in silence. And then I realized I wasn't keeping the peace, air quote keeping the peace. I was keeping pain. And so somewhere along the way, and let me say this, this particular topic about, us dealing in silence with the pain that we have or had experienced, it's a people thing. This is for people, regardless of gender, regardless of race. It's a human thing. We all feel it or have felt it at some time in our lives. Per usual, I will always only speak from my social identifiers. And so I will talk about this particular thing in my Black womanhood. But don't fear, I realize that a lot of the things I'm going to say in this applies to everyone. If you're not Black, if you're not a woman, if you're somewhere in between, you might be an alien from Mars, and it may apply to them too. So I know, somewhere along the way, especially as Black women, we were taught that our power um, was in our ability to endure and then to endure quietly, right? That if you don't cry, you don't ask, you don't flinch, you're strong. You are a strong person. Here's the trope, a strong woman. We would hold in our tears, we would bite our tongues, we would rationalize the irrational, and then we turn around and we would call it emotional intelligence. Here's what I am learning. Growth, growing in growth isn't about shutting up. It's about showing up and showing up with honesty, even when it shakes. When it shakes you, when it shakes me, when it shakes the people around us, when it shakes the spaces we occupy, and this isn't, again, it's not specific to dating only. This is a life thing. And I can't tell you how many times I've stayed silent to, and I'm air quoting, keep the vibes, right? Keep the vibe right. Or to just not offend someone, like rub up against their delicate sensibilities. And I don't know if they were delicate or not. I was assuming they were delicate, but those sensibilities only to feel very, very invisible in a dynamic that I actually helped build through my own withholding. And then I turn around and tell myself, you're being mature, cat. But no, no. I wasn't being mature. I was just afraid that if I asked for more, I'd get left. And we always come back to abandonment or something. Good grief. And that that wasn't growth. It was fear. And it was fear dressed in a grown woman's outfit. Fear dressed in grown folks' clothes. Now that I'm thinking about this a little bit more, let's go a little deeper. Let's pull an onion layer back here. That kind of silence, that kind of like self-erasure, it didn't start suddenly. It didn't like, oh, it suddenly started last year. And it didn't even start in my 20s. It honestly, if I'm thinking about these things start that, dealing with the roots, not just the fruit. This stuff, this silence, it started with the little girl version of me, right? My little girl, my inner child. The little girl who learned early that her feelings were very real. They were very valid, but there was no time. That we didn't have time to let them be felt. And that the sadness was real. Her sadness was real and it was valid, but other things had to be prioritized. Because remember, the environment around us that we live in, the spaces that we occupy when we're in survival mode, other things are just more important. And so feelings are not important. We gotta survive, folks. We gotta survive. Scratching and surviving. Ain't no good time. And so what I did is what a lot of us do. I whether we know it or not, right? Consciously or unconsciously, I took my little girl and I put her into the most exquisite garden. And y'all, when I say exquisite, I mean exquisite. Beautiful, lush and green. There were soft colors and journals and music and books. It was peaceful and it was serene and it was safe and it was completely isolated. The walls were high on purpose. And again, I believe like most of us do, I tucked her away in a part of myself I didn't think anyone could get to, and thus no one could hurt, not even me. And I told myself that I was protecting her. Really, really for real, thinking, doing this out of protection. I'm protecting her. I am loving her fiercely. But as I'm getting older, right, and I'm having my sit in the car moments when we all sit in our car, like it's an office. We pull up in our driveways or our parking lots, and we sit in our cars for minutes or hours, sometimes at a time. And in these moments, when I'm in the car or in the bathroom, because I don't know what's up with the bathroom, but I realized I was not protecting her. I was avoiding her because letting her out of that exquisite garden, honestly, y'all, it meant I had to feel things that I didn't want to feel. It meant I had to reckon with what I had learned to silence. And, but after a while, the silence gets very loud. It gets really loud and it really starts to take up a lot of space in life. And so we got to deal with it. We got to change it. We got to heal. But what is real healing? What's real strength? Again, I'm not talking about that actual the real strength where you like, you know what, this is not the time to say anything. This is not the opportunity to say anything. I'm going to stay silent. I'm not talking about those very real times where it is emotional maturity. It is the best thing to do and come back and deal with the thing later. I'm not talking about that silence. I'm not talking about that strength. I'm talking about this other thing. What is the real strength? What is real healing? To me, in understanding this, it's honestly just not keeping our inner children hidden. You know, I often hear and we often speak of like healing our inner child, the um, wounded fragment of ourselves that is, I don't know, caught and crystallized in the amber of time. The little girl who hid beneath tables if someone was arguing, or the little boy who learned to disappear when people's voices got too loud. And we learn to visit our younger selves in our gardens, in these corridors of memory, and we bring them comfort like um, bedtime stories, and we sing lullabies of understanding to quiet their fears, and we offer them validation to, I don't know, help them sleep at night. And we create again these beautiful internal gardens like nurseries. In real life, I love a nursery, guys. But we create these gardens, these nurseries, and these places where our younger selves can finally feel safe, where their wounds can be tended to and their stories can be believed. And we in our adulthood become the attentive parents to them, you know? Um, I heard someone say we parent our internal child the way we need it to be parented. I was like, that's interesting. But in doing this, right, and keeping them in these beautiful, lush gardens and nurseries and tending to our younger selves this way, we keep them forever children. They stay as a child. We preserve their smallness and their vulnerabilities. Um, and we do it as if healing means remaining or maintaining this eternal separation, right? Adult self attending to child self. And so we have this, I don't know what to say, a divided consciousness of adult self and child self. But y'all, I just don't think we're made to live like this forever. I truly believe we have to integrate with ourselves. And true integration of self asks something that is, what's the word I want to use? Not to be dramatic, but it's something that is revolutionary because we are inviting our inner child to grow alongside us, to experience what they missed, not just in safety, but also in maturity and expansion and like the full arc of development. And so the little boy and the little girl who never felt seen, they cannot remain forever 5 years old inside of a 35-year-old body. It, it- they deserve to grow through adolescence, in young adulthood. They deserve to discover their own strength beyond merely being protected. And so in doing this and integrating, we dissolve this divide. There's no more adult me visiting child me or inner child me in very scheduled sessions, right? Instead, there is this beautiful and continuous flow of shared wisdom and shared experience in different aspects of selfhood that are in constant and healthy communication. And when fully integrated, our inner child's, that playfulness that we think of, like, oh, that a child is very playful. Our inner child's playfulness, it can become, I don't know, our spontaneity. And their wonder, that childlike wonder, can become our curiosity. And the vulnerability that they have, it can become our authenticity. And on the other way, our wisdom becomes their discernment. I don't think wholeness looks like, separate rooms in the house of our beings, in the house of our souls. I think it's a home where every room is just freely accessed, where things flow without borders or checkpoints, where all of the parts are contributing to the symphony of selfhood. And so the goal, at least to me, for me, is never to become an adult who carries a healed child, but to become an undivided being, where the fractures of trauma or pain or abandonment or rejection or whatever the thing is, right? Where those fractures haven't been, just sealed, but transformed into flexible and resilient wholeness, a single integrated self that's moving through this very wild and chaotic world with all of this accumulated wisdom and all of this capacity for joy and all of this very earned resilience, like the full spectrum of humanity finally and beautifully undivided, like whole, beautifully whole. And so, we walk back to that garden. I walk back to that garden. I'll say I statements again. I walk back to my garden and I open the gate and I sit beside her and I say, I'm sorry I left you here. I didn't know how to carry you and survive, but now I know better and I want you with me. That's integration to me. And it's not cute and perfect and people are like, let's take an Instagram of it. No, it is shaky and it is awkward and it is oftentimes gut wrenching and hard, but it's real. And what's wild is, the moment I stopped trying to be strong all the time, right? That moment I let my little girl speak and cry and need, I didn't feel weaker. I felt whole. And I started loving not just from all of my healed parts, but from the honest ones too. And now, bringing this full circle to the silent strength fallacy, I learned that I don't need to be silent to be safe, and I don't need to be invisible to be valued, and I do not need to be tough to be worthy of tenderness. I just got to be real. I just got to show up and be real. And you got to be fair. To be fair, how can anyone change or repair or mend or just understand what's happening or how they're contributing in a way that is, painful if we don't ever say anything? Like, make it make sense. I have learned that by being real and speaking up, I do give other people a chance to show up, right? Suddenly there's an occasion to rise to. And if they meet that occasion, fantastic, because we are growing and learning and understanding each other better. And if they don't rise to the occasion, fantastic still, because I realize this may not be a person I want in my life. And again, this isn't just a dating thing. Of course, the person could be a potential significant other, but it also could be a business partner or a colleague or a boss or a roommate, right? This fallacy of strength and speaking and silence, it shows up everywhere in life, you know. So, I'm all in my feels. I'm all in my feels. And this isn't a long one today, y'all, but I'm in my feels. And so allow me to do something different as we wrap up. Um, there's just so much happening in the world around us. There's so much noise, and it is so very loud. So I'm going to give some encouragement to the one that's listening and trying to hold it all together. I see you. To the one that keeps getting applauded for being strong, but secretly, desperately wishes that someone would just hold them. I see you. To the one that built a garden for your inner child and told him or her, "Stay here, I'll come back for you." Please let me remind you that it's your time. It's time. It's time to let them out. It's time to let them speak. It's time to let them feel. Listen to me. You are not too much. You never were. You are not too much. You never were. So let them walk. Let your inner child walk beside you rather than hide inside you. Because honestly, y'all, that's to me, that's what grown up love looks like. So, as always, thank y'all for being here with me. Subscribe and share as you will. And until next time, friends, stay curious and stay kind and stay true to your journey.